All these rights are given in the first page itself. And very interestingly, you must remember, the opening words is, "We the people of India." Therefore, the law is made by the people, maybe through the Constituent Assembly. And once the Constitution was formulated in full, it was adopted on the 26th of November 1949. We commemorate that day as either as the Law Day or as the Constitution Day, just a couple of days ago. So, on that day, practically the Constituent Assembly stood wound up. It finished its job. The people's lawmaking is over. Then the people need not sit all the time together to make the laws. Therefore, they entrusted the few things with a few bodies. The first one is the parliament. The second is the respective state legislatures. Again, we must remember that India is not a nation at all. Either in the history, might be in mythology, never in fact. If you read Ramachandra Guha, there are various chapters in his book, India After Gandhi, which says that India never existed as a nation. But these people are boasting about 5,000 years of history, 10,000 years of history, all this humbug, not on historical facts. On the other hand, at the time when the Britishers came, India was a fragmented composition of almost more than 800 nations. Even at the time independence was given, India was never together. Again, the British domined India, the Maharajas, various other Zamins, and all those people again joined only after independence was given to us. Either joined by force or by persuasion. And even the Kashmir issue, all of you know, Hyderabad issue, all of you know, the people were actually forced to enter into a compromise to align with India. Therefore, this is not something that people existed in majority for 5,000 and 10,000 years, and a new nation is born through the constitution, and the poor minorities are given some charity. That is why minority rights, it's not like that. This is the false perception that has been perpetuated by the people in power today and the rightist wings that are supporting them. Well, we must first learn that. Number two, minority right is not again to be always considered as the matter that the majority should consider favorably, because the other argument is why the minorities should have better rights than the majority. This again is a false perception. Professor Jawahar pointed out the famous statement of Franklin Roosevelt. The index of the nation's progress depends upon the progress of the minorities in the country. That is the only hallmark. That is the only measurement. Take for any country in the world. And very interestingly, India is a composition of multifaceted communities. Unlike any other nation, it has no ethnic basis, it has no religious basis, it has no linguistic basis, it not even casteist basis. Historians record that more than 6,400 castes and subcastes existed at the time when India got independence. Such a multifaceted, variegated community decided to live together under a single constitution. In fact, if you ask me what is the binding force, it is not the love, it is not the affection, or it is the uniformity of ethnicity. But on the other hand, it is the constitutional law that keeps us binding to it. Why it has got such a binding force? Because it is full of compromises, compassions, compromises for the sake of the minority, for women, children, so on and so forth. That is the binding force which keeps this country together today. So nobody can claim, or even the majority can ever be heard claiming that minority right is something which is falling as a charity from our hearts. On the other hand, democracy is better defined in worldwide, that democracy may be the rule of the majority, but the right of the minority. You may rule, but the right shall still be enjoyed by the minority. This is the reason why when this minority right was actually enshrined in the constitution, it was never kept in any part of the constitution. It was very carefully kept in part 3 of the constitution. All of you know that part 3 is the fundamental rights chapter. Article 30 is a small article, beautiful article, which confers that right. Article 29 talks about religious rights, institutions for religious purposes, but Article 30 doesn't talk about religion. It gives such wide power to us our education may be either sacred or secular, maybe even divine or even profane. Suppose Christians consider that preaching communism is something profane, still you can teach and still you can claim the minority right. Nobody can be heard to say, after all it is antithetical to your religion, why do you teach? But still we have the right to teach even things which are antithetical to us. This is the wide right that is given under Article 30. You may ask me now, this is again forming part of Article 30. Would it not be possible for the Parliament to amend the Constitution to wipe out this right? I would say it is not possible now. Why? Because though fundamental rights articles are amenable for change, the Parliament, by sitting with the two-third majority, both houses of Parliament, Lok Sabha as well as Rajya Sabha, they can very well amend even the fundamental rights articles. But so far as Article 30 is concerned, the Supreme Court way back in 1973 declared this as a basic structure of the Indian Constitution. So therefore it falls outside the power of amendment by the Parliament. If the Parliament touches it, the courts are here to strike them down, saying that unconstitutional. Therefore this is something which not only was born as a charity, but doesn't live as a charity, and it can't be ever treated in future also as a charity, because even Parliament sitting with 100%, leave alone two-thirds, 100%, all the MPs are voting for that, still they can't touch Article 30. This is the present position. Then the next one is, especially the chairperson of the Minorities Commission very beautifully pointed out that why we can't focus our rights only on educational institutions and education. Why don't we enter into other domains like social service, religious services, so on and so forth? It is really a fantastic suggestion. We should not actually be confined to this field of education alone. At the same time, I would like to point out, when the minorities were asked what shall be your rights, because at the time when the Constitution was in the making, demands were made by our leaders, minority leaders, not for education. They demanded reservations in the legislative houses, Parliament as well as state legislatures, as well as in public employment. In short, bureaucracy. Therefore, there shall be reservation both in the lawmaking parliamentarians as well as the state legislative members. At the same time, the bureaucratic executive also, starting from IAS down below to the panchayat level.